We are Cory and Wallace, an early retired couple on a full-time journey around the world. With a passion for exploring new cultures, discovering hidden gems, and enjoying delicious local food, we are on a mission to experience as much of the world as we can.
Hello from Medellín, Colombia.
We are going to go check out a little bit more of Medellín over the next few days. Today we are going to be taking an Uber up to, it's called Pueblito Paisa, I believe it is how it's pronounced. And what it is a replica of a traditional Antioquian village or town up on top of a hill right here in the center of Medellín. Antioquia is one of the 32 departments, or I guess kind of like states or provinces, that makes up Colombia. And so we are going to go see a traditional village today, which should be pretty cool. All right, our Uber drivers brought us up to the top of Cerro Nutibara, which is the hill basically right smack in the middle of Medellín, and we are now here at Pueblito Paisa.
Yeah, we didn't take long. It was actually really easy to get up here, and now I guess we go wander because I don't see an entrance, but I'm sure we'll have to go find one.
I don't know that there's an entrance so much. This is basically a replica of a town, so it's literally just this little town up here at the top of the mountain. Lots of tourists, lots of food vendors, souvenir vendors, that sort of thing. But it's really colorful, really vibrant. Some cool street art right here, and this should be really fun. We've wandered down into the food area. Looks like just a whole bunch of little restaurants, food vendors, and seating here out in the open. We just did a walkthrough of the food area. All local, traditional Colombian food. Looked like a lot of arepas, a lot of empanadas, a lot of like meats, grilled meats, fried chicharron, stuff like that. Not a lot of variety if that's not what you're into, but it did all look and smell pretty tasty.
I think we've seen it all. There's honestly not a lot here.
No, that's correct. It's a lot smaller of a site than I thought it was going to be. There is also the Museo de Ciudad, the Museum of the City, which is a little museum apparently that displays like historic photos, that sort of thing. Not really what we're feeling up to today, so we're gonna skip that, and I think we're just gonna slowly wander back, have a nice walk back to our Airbnb because it's a beautiful sunny day. It's actually really warm today. It's 28 degrees today, which is a couple, 2 or 3 degrees warmer than any other day we've experienced so far. So it's beautiful and sunny and warm.
But I would say as far as coming here, if you're looking for something specific for like bringing home souvenirs or just want a day out of like authentic food, that might be a reason to come here. But beyond that, I don't think there's a lot here to justify coming here specifically.
I'd probably agree with that. Looks like at one point there would have been some nice views of the city, but as you can see behind us, a lot of the trees and brush have grown up and have obscured most of that view. Because we are in the middle of the city on a hilltop, so theoretically there should be 360-degree views, but the greenery basically all blocks that in, so you can't really see.
Which is fine.
Yeah, So
there are nature trails here. We're just not in the mood to do nature trails today.
it's pretty hot.
So that might be another reason to come here. We haven't experienced them ourselves, so we can't recommend them or not. But they do look like they're in the bushes and look like they might be very enjoyable.
Yeah. So I think that's it for today, and we'll catch you guys later. All right. So we've decided to take a shortcut through these nature trails to cut down to the entrance of the park and get out of here. We'll see how this goes. We've come across a little fitness park area, like just exercise equipment, bikes, ellipticals, that sort of thing, and a little playground there for the kids.
Hola, buenas.
Buenas tardes. ¿Tres comidos, por favor?
¿Tres? Sencillo.
Para acá o para llevar.
All right, picked up a little snack there at that stand. These are called buñuelos, and they're basically a little fried fritter or donut ball. They're pretty cheap. The plain ones are 1,000 pesos, and then I got one of the filled ones, which is filled with bocadillo, which is a guava filling, and these are 2,000 pesos, so about 75 cents Canadian each. And what they are, the dough is like a cheese. It's made of cheese and cassava flour. So very local, if you can see that. Crispy on the outside, soft and fluffy on the inside. And then they're just a little bit salty from the cheese, and then you've got that sweet guava paste. And that is really, really tasty.
Several days later.
Good morning from Medellín, Colombia.
We've only got a few days left here in Medellín, and today we've decided to take a free walking tour. So we're heading right now to the metro station, and we're just going to take it 2 stops to meet our tour group, and we're going to go see the historic center today.
Now, we did actually originally book this on Get Your Guide. There was a booking fee, but then we realized it was a free walking tour,
So we canceled the Get Your Guide tour and then found the company doing the free walking tour online and just booked directly through them. So we'll end up just tipping the guide the same amount that we would have paid Get Your Guide, but that way more of that money stays local and doesn't go to a corporation, which is a win-win.
yeah. So, yeah, come along with us and see the historic town.
So at the metro station, apparently you can't just buy single-use one-way tickets like we assumed. They unfortunately don't speak any English, so I had to translate using Google Translate, but it turns out we had to buy a metro card and then load it with 2 tickets. So I'm not sure if that's the way it's supposed to be. I assumed you could buy single tickets, but regardless, it wasn't that expensive. I think it was 19,300 pesos for both of us. So I mean, that's less than $4 each.
Colombia. And each color represents a micro country. It's like a different cultural location. Paisas are the ones from a dark green area, in which Medellín is the big city, the biggest, but it goes all the way down to the coffee region. So even if you go to Manizales, Pereira, Armenia, they are still Paisas. I'm going to split my presentation into 4 episodes. They're going to be episode 1, origin. Episode 2, growth. Episode 3, tragedy. And episode 4, resurrection. But that's going to be in season 2. Flask represents the transition between the 1800s and the 1900s. The backpack is the 1970s. By the way, it's not to scale. Okay? Now, episode 1, what is that?
Origin.
Origin. We have to go back to the top. Over here in the origin, we have indigenous people. Particularly one group known as the Aburrá people. Actually, that's why this place is called El Valle de la Aburrá, or the Aburrá Valley, as a tribute to the original inhabitants. But at some point, let's say over here, some Spanish people showed up looking for gold. And do you know how much gold they found here? Dexter? Zero. And that's crazy because Cecile was saying a lot. In Colombia, a lot. But in Medellín, zero. And it was very disappointing for those Spanish people. They were very angry and they left. But eventually there was a second group of Spanish people that arrived. And this second group were actually looking for a place to live. What do you want in a place to live? Nice weather, beautiful landscapes, fertile soil, water. Well, voila, we have it all. Those people decided to settle here and created a new village. I will give you these one day. I promise not too many dates, but this one I know you can remember. Ready? 16. That's when they found this place, they created a village, and some 250 years later, nothing had happened. Spanish people were really, really good at building churches. That's what they did. They built churches all over the place. What else? Oh no, they also mixed with indigenous people. That mix of indigenous and Spanish gave origin to what we are. That's it. We didn't have any battles for the independence of Colombia or Medellín. Have you seen the colonial district of Medellín yet? No? Well, you won't, because we don't have one. Yeah, you go to Cartagena, the Wall City, Getsemaní. You go to Bogotá, La Candelaria. You come to Medellín, nothing. Episode 2. What is that? Growth. The growth started over here in the late 1800s. That was the time when people around the world discovered a new substance. Something that gave them like a boost of energy, made them more active. Starts with a C.
Okay.
Coffee, of course. Not the other thing some were thinking. Coffee, you saved quite a few. Turns out that the international boom of coffee was a time when people around the world were drinking coffee like crazy, while we, Paisas, had the perfect soil and a perfect climate to grow coffee. So we grew coffee, we sold coffee to improve our logistics because we needed to export more. And with a railway in place, we were able to export more coffee, but at the same time, we were able to let in the Industrial Revolution. So, I know it's much later than the rest of the world, but in Medellín, 120 years ago, we developed the cement industry, iron industry, textiles, banking, insurances, electricity, and suddenly the tiny, insignificant city in which nothing happened in a quarter of a millennium became the powerhouse of Colombia. In a matter of like 50 years, the population of Medellín grew sevenfold. Sevenfold growth is huge. But if you think about it, it happened in the middle of very difficult circumstances. Because this flat area of the city, I'm going to call that the official city. There was an area where people had utilities, infrastructure, people had jobs, people had schools close to their houses. Well, they had houses to begin with. But the people who were arriving from the countryside, they had nothing. And then they arrived in a flat area, and people said, like, hey guys, we're full. Like, the bottom of the valley is already occupied. So if the flat area was full, where did those people go? Up in the mountains. And guys, this is not California. The higher up you go in the mountains here, the lower the living conditions. So the life they had to live up there was a completely different story. They had nothing of what the people in the official Medellín had. So the people, the whole city was developed in the middle of social inequality. Let's fast forward to the 50s. In the 50s, there were some heavy tariffs added on imported goods. It's been tried before. It backfired, by the way. It was basically an attempt of the government to stop the sale of foreign goods and to promote the sale of Colombian goods in Colombia. But what happened was kind of the opposite. Because now the people who wanted to smoke, who wanted to drink foreign alcohol, foreign cigarettes, they created secret routes to go out of the country to buy cigarettes, alcohol, appliances. They brought them back into the country without telling the authorities. They didn't pay those taxes, those tariffs, so they were able to sell those things more cheaply than official vendors while making higher profits. Smuggling business, bing, they had an idea. They said, we can grow anything in Colombia. We already have the routes for smuggling in, but now we can use them in the opposite direction to smuggle out. Well, eventually the main source of income came to be drug dealing. And that is the beginning of episode number 3, which is tragedy. That tragedy started in the 70s, but it somehow continues. And do you remember the young guy who was climbing the ladder? Yes, he made it to the top. He managed to unify those families in a brutal way. Because in the 80s and the 90s, we were here. And we suffered the tragedy in the flesh. Think of this, when I was just 5, I was sleeping early in the morning, everything quiet, and then boom, massive explosions. My windows were all broken, my mom was crying next to me, my father was running to get my brother. It was chaos. I didn't understand what was going on, but it's one of my early childhood memories. As an adult, when I moved to the US, I was happy to represent my country, so I was always like, I am Julio from Colombia, nice to meet you, hi Julio, Colombia. Well, I remember this one guy coming to me with a big smile, like, hey, Colombian, I know who you are. #1 producers of cocaine in the world, aren't you? It's like, are you kidding me? Is that the only bloody thing you know about Colombia? I was very angry, very. But later I understood it was not even his fault, he was just ignorant. But it was the famous criminal's fault, and it's the industry's fault that as Colombians we drag these stigmas wherever we go. So for me, there's absolutely no way to like that criminal, period. But then, the next group number 2, is gonna stand up to contradict me. Second group is made up mainly, not exclusively, of teenagers and people in their early 20s. Many of those are the ones that actually look up to the man and idolize him. How's that even possible? Well, sadly, Colombia is a country that has no official narrative on this topic. We don't even talk about this at school. We don't have a history class to discuss them. And at home, shh, shh. We don't want to talk about him because it feels deep inside that if we don't talk about him, it never happened. Well, it did happen. But the fact that we ignore it is not going to make it go away. Quite the opposite. Now we're just putting the dead body under the carpet. But the new generation, they're curious. And they're getting their information one way or another. So they go to YouTube and Netflix. And that's where they see an image of a guy who was always surrounded by beautiful girls who have more cash than all of us could spend in a lifetime. Isn't that cool? Isn't that what we all want? See? It becomes a role model. So that is why some kids idolize it. But then group number three. Group number three is a very, I don't even know how to describe it. Because it's people of all ages who just stand in the middle and say, I don't know. And that's the biggest group in Colombia. So the biggest group in Colombia have no opinion. But they're the ones that usually come up with things like, well, he was a criminal, he killed many people, and he set many bombs in the city, but, hey, he gave away houses to poor people, so what? Are you gonna come and tell me that if I give away houses to poor people, then I can kill as many as I want, and that makes me a good person? Really? 1991, almost 7,000 people were assassinated in Medellín. 7,000 in 1 year. That's like 18 per day, every single day of the year.
Our guide Julio's cut us loose for about the next 18 minutes to wander around. We are currently in this really beautiful old building that was built by a Belgian architect, he said. I think it's about 100 years old, and this used to be the Palace of Justice. So it used to be a government building. Today it is basically a large mall. There's shops, there's apparently an art gallery up on the upper floors. So we're gonna go wander around real quick and check it out.
They were going to destroy it, but someone bought it and turned it into a shopping mall. I'm really happy for that because it is absolutely gorgeous, and to lose that bit of history would have been devastating.
Yeah, the church over there behind this thing is called Iglesia de la Candela, no, de la Veracruz. La Veracruz. It's the second oldest church in town. When it was built, many people called it the Church of the Foreigners. And that would actually make it your church. However, today this area is very well recognized for being one of the hotspots for sex workers. And people say, Julio, sex workers in a church? Well, not in the church, but around. You're gonna find some of them.
So this area we just walked through is Plaza Botero. Botero was an artist, I believe. I'll have to correct that. I'll look that up and put a correction on the screen if that's wrong. And he donated 23 of these sculptures to be permanently displayed here, and that was in, I believe, 2002. Just really bustling area. This is probably one of the busiest areas in Medellín. And that building there was designed about 100 years ago by the same Belgian architect that designed the Palace of Justice. And he quit halfway through because the city ran out of money and were bad-mouthing him. So that's why part of the building looks black and white, and then the other side, they basically just finished it with like a plain white wall. because they tried to follow his blueprints and couldn't, so that's the way it ended up.
1985, wonder groups in the extreme left came to Bogota, to the Palace of Justice, and they took it by force. They went inside, killed a bunch of people in the ground floor, then they went upstairs and took all the members of the Supreme Court of Justice hostage. The army responded very quickly. They brought tanks, imagine, war tanks, going into the Palace of Justice to solve a hostage situation. You can imagine what it meant. There was a fire, there was the end of a story, but later we got videos in which the Colombian army were rescuing civilians out of a building. Just alive, of course. Yeah, but later, the same civilians were found back inside the building with a bullet shot to their heads. Bullets of the Colombian army. Of course, the question was, why? Well, we were trying to understand why, and only 6 days later, 22,000 people died in one night. 22,000 in one night, if I'm not mistaken the numbers. There was a volcano in a Cauca region, it erupted, melted the snow on top, down came an avalanche, and it wiped out the entire town of Armero, killing its 22,000 inhabitants, all gone. So you see what I'm saying? In a matter of, what, a week, less than a week, we have to witness the mess with the Colombian army, the guerrillas, the volcano. Well, we still have one more story, 1990, we had a presidential election. 4 candidates were running for the presidency, and out of those 4, 3 were assassinated. 2 were killed by the extreme right, and the other one, the most popular one, Galan, he was going to be the president. He was climbing onto a platform to start talking to his people, and then they shot him. It was a famous criminal of this city who had him assassinated in front of thousands of his followers cheering for him. So I guess after these 3 brief stories, you can understand a little bit better how complicated our history has been. In Colombia, we've been through so much pain and suffering and mess. This is where everything started. Original square, original church. Well, not really. Because I don't know why back then people were not very aware of the incompatibility of wood, straw, and candles. So yeah, this is the 3rd version of the original church. Today nobody uses this place. Why? Well, in 1995 we had a concert here. It was a massive concert. People were dancing all over the place. The band was over there. People were dancing all over the place, having fun, enjoying. Like at 9:15, 9:20, boom! Huge explosion. Someone had left a bag full of explosives underneath that bird. And you know, Boteros are not supposed to look like that. That night, 23 people died. Well, 24, because there was a pregnant woman amongst the victims. And who did it? We never knew. No. Today we just shared walking in the real city of Medellín, a city that is not only mine, but now also yours. So thank you very much for having been here, and I hope you enjoyed this tour as much as I did. Muchas gracias.
That tour was really cool. There wasn't a lot of like dramatics. We didn't walk too far or anything like that, but just the information was incredible.
Yeah, our guide, Julio, spoke perfect English. He lived in the US for a while, and he gave us a lot of really great insight into the history of Medellín, as well as the local Paisa people. So we learned a lot more about the culture and how this area grew and developed, and all the hardships they faced in the 80s and 90s up to the present day. That was a super useful tour to really get a better understanding of this area.
Yeah, highly recommend it. We'll put a link in the description to the one that we did.
Yeah, so this was through Real City Tours, and you can just book this free walking tour, and they're paid entirely with tips. And yeah, we'll put a link in the description below for this.
Yeah.
So anyways, thanks very much for joining us here on our walking tour of the historic center of Medellín. We hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the thumbs up, give us a like, and make sure you subscribe.
And join us in our other videos for more adventures. Until then, stay curious and keep exploring.
A few moments later.
Incidentally, if when you finish the tour, you're going to be at the or near the San Antonio metro station, if you feel like a snack, there's this place right behind me, Empanada Pues. Really, really damn good empanadas. And this is 4,500 pesos, so I don't know what that is, like $2, give or take.